Today, we're going to talk about warm-up sets. My name's Jacob Ziemer. I've been a trainer in the Westchester area, a county right outside of New York City for the past 10 years, and I have worked with hundreds of clients each and every single year. On top of that, I've had a following on social media for the past 5 years, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, which has allowed me to grow a coaching business where I have coached hundreds of people each year remotely. So I have worked with thousands of people through the span of my career. And today we are going to talk about warm-up sets because I find it to be one of the most challenging concepts for people who are new and even intermediate at the gym to grasp. I find over and over again, people aren't quite sure of the weight to use when warming up, and they're not quite sure why they are warming up. So we're gonna get in depth into that topic today. I do wanna say that this video is intended for my coaching clients, whether they be on the app, whether they be virtual through my transformation program, which you can find out more about at jacobziemer.com, and even those who train with me in person who sometimes work out on their own. First and foremost, what is a warm-up set? A warm-up set is intended for you to raise your core body temperature, get your joints and ligaments ready, start to potentiate your muscles to do work, and for you to take inventory of how you're feeling. That is what a warm-up set is intended to do. Going through each of those points, the first one, to warm up, it's very obvious what we're talking about here. When you walk into the gym, you're cold, and by lifting, by exercising, you're going to raise your core body temperature. That is the first and foremost purpose of a warm-up. Secondly, your joints, tendons, ligaments. You think about your elbow. As we get older, people start dealing with tennis elbow. Think about your knees, you think about your hips, those trigger points on your body that people frequently have pain. You want to warm those up rather than go right into your working set. If your core body temperature is not raised, and secondly, you have not prepped your joints and ligaments, you are putting yourself at increased risk for injury. So that is the primary reason that we warm up, to raise our core body temperature and then joints and ligaments. The third, after safety, is for performance. Have you ever done a set with really heavy weight? You get done, you do a second set with really heavy weight, and the second set actually feels easier than the first set. That is because your muscles were not prepped in order to lift that weight. There is a neurological function to lifting. We think about that frequently when you think about something like doing something like skaters, which requires some level of athleticism, right? But the same is true with even something like bench press or squat. There's technique involved. Your body has to move in a particular fashion, and you want to prep it for that action. And so doing a warm-up set also serves a neurological function, which is going to allow you to perform better. And the fourth reason that we do our warm-up set is so that you can take inventory of how you're feeling. Going along with those joints and ligaments, going along with those performance needs, you may begin to do a set and be like, I kind of feel my elbow. Well, that means either one, you need to stop, and if you use my app, you can simply hit the substitution button and do a different exercise, or you need to look around and think, all right, should I foam roll? Should I switch the exercise? Should I do a couple additional warm-up sets? Because if something is bothering you when you initially go to do it with the lighter weight that we're gonna be doing in a warm-up, it is really going to bother you when doing a working set. And then after you're done training, it will bother you even more. The key is always to not get injured, because if you get injured, you are not able to train. And so we want to make sure that we're seeing, how does my elbow feel? Am I actually feeling my pec? Am I tired today? Am I going to be able to lift at my best? It's not an excuse to not push yourself. I'm not telling you that if you feel tired, you can't push yourself, but it might mean if you're tired today, it might not be in a situation where you're gonna get your best lift of all time. So those are the four reasons and why we do a warm-up set. Now, how do we actually execute a warm-up set? For each of these three offerings on my website, you have a program on my app. And on every program, each day, it is going to show a video about warming up, which is basically an abridged version of what we're talking about today, telling you how to do a warm-up set. Now, your first exercise is then listed after warm-up. And let's say theoretically it was the one arm row. What you are going to do each week is track your working sets with a weight. It's incredibly important when you're weight training, guys, that you want to progress your lifts. That means week over week, you should be getting stronger. If a month ago you were using a 90-pound dumbbell on one arm rows, by now you should be at least using 95 pounds on one arm rows for the same given amount of repetitions. Over time, you want to get stronger. When you're new to training, you're going to get much stronger very quickly. And obviously over time, there's always diminishing returns, but still month over month, week over week, you want to be getting stronger, even if it's just a couple extra reps with the same weight that you have been using. So let's say we track on our app, our first exercise in the program is one arm rows, and we used 100 pounds last week. We are going to warm up with a percentile of that weight. And I would say when you're using weight like 100 pounds, you should be doing 2 warm-ups. And even if you're just new to training and you're using lighter weights, you should do a couple warm-up sets with your first exercise. So we're using 100 pounds on one arm rows. And for our warm-up, we're gonna use about 30 to 40% of that weight. So I have a 40-pound dumbbell here in order to prime myself. And I'm going to do 10 repetitions. And I would recommend doing something like 10, 12 repetitions, because remember, our job right now is to raise our core body temperature. I would not just do a couple reps, and we always want to be refining our technique. So I would row this in such a way as a real set. Then I am going to take approximately a 2-minute break before I do my next warm-up set. So I did a warm-up set with the 40. I'm going to be using 100 for my working sets. Okay, so now we're going to take roughly 2/3 the weight. So I'm going to set this adjustable dumbbell to 70 pounds. And I'm going to do another warm-up set. 2 warm-up sets with this weight. And the same thing is going to happen again. I'm going to use impeccable form. I'm going to do several reps. I don't think you need to do 10 again, but I would at least do 3 to 5 repetitions here because we're getting our joints and ligaments ready. With that first warm-up set, we raised our core body temperature. We're gonna accomplish this again with our second warm-up set. But with this, we're starting to use heavier weight, and it's a great time to take inventory. Am I feeling any pain while I do this exercise? So again, maintaining good form, making sure that nothing's hurting, making sure that we're locking in how to appropriately do this, and we're potentiating our muscles. And we're going to take another 2-minute break, and then we're gonna start going to our working sets. And this is the weight that I would track. And your goal on your working sets is to beat what you have done the previous weight. Now this applies to whether you're doing a one arm row, it applies whether you're using something like this barbell squat, and the same exact thing would apply here. Let's say that I'm going to barbell squat with 135 pounds. Okay, well perhaps I'm gonna warm up with the bar. Typically these bars weigh 45 pounds. This weighs 55, but bear with me because this is a kabuki. If you had a standard barbell on here, it would be 45 pounds, which is 1/3 of 135 pounds. And then thereafter, I would probably jump up to again 66%, which means I would add a 25-pound to each side of this, and then do my warm-up set after a 2-minute break. And again, the first one, I would do around 10 repetitions because I want to raise my core body temperature. If squats was my first exercise, I would make sure that I sufficiently warm up my body, and then I make sure that my tendons and ligaments are warmed up on that second set, and then I'm taking inventory of how I'm feeling. As I go through my program, you could have various different programs. We have total body day programs where you would be doing a one-arm row and also a squat. We have programs that are push-pull legs where you work an entire muscle group. Depending on the next movement on your program, after we did something like the one-arm row, if it's another back exercise, say it's pull-ups, say it's pull-downs, you may not need to warm up. However, if you don't feel comfortable or you don't know the appropriate amount of weight to use, feel free to do another warm-up set for each of the exercises, even if they're within the same muscle group. However, if they are vastly different muscle groups, for example, we did our one-arm row, and now we're going something like the squat. Squat doesn't involve any of the anatomy that one-arm row does. I would suggest you warm up all over again. And that's one of the downsides of doing a total body program, is that it does require additional warm-ups to make sure that you're prepped. But I would make sure that after we do our one-arm row, if we squat, we make sure that we do multiple warm-ups so that we're prepared. And as we go through each of these into every single exercise, if they involve different muscle groups, I always do warm-up sets. So if I got done with training back and my next exercise was something like a curl, and when I was doing it, that made me feel my elbow, I would, one, either take a moment and lighten the weight, warm up, see if I can work any kinks out. I would potentially foam roll the area, or I would hit substitution on my app and use a different exercise. Of course, if you're part of the coaching program, transformation prescribed, communicate immediately when you are feeling pain, because we want to adjust the exercise. The cool thing about training to build muscles is that you have a lot of tools in your arsenal. There are a ton of different exercises you can use. Just because one exercise is bothering you doesn't mean that there's not another exercise that won't bother you. And if you push through, you are likely to complicate your training even further. I think about like cooking. If you add salt to a dish, if you put too much salt in, you'll ruin it. If you put too little salt in, you can always add more salt. And that's what I think about when I think about weight for an exercise. Always underestimate, and if it's too easy, just add more. Don't commit to the set, use it as a warm-up, add weight, and then get into your working sets. And that is an in-depth look at warm-up sets. I hope this was informative. I hope that this helps you. Whether you're part of one of my programs or you're simply on YouTube watching this, that this makes an impact on your training. We put out long format content each and every single week here on YouTube, short format content, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. My handle is Jacob Ziemer. Thank you for watching today. I hope you enjoyed what you watch. On this channel, we talk about real things like how to train, about how to go to the grocery store, about seeing the doctor, all about health, nutrition, and fitness. I'm 42 years old. I have a 5-month-old child at home, a wife who works in finance. I'm a real person with a real life who helps real people get in the best shape of their life. You can go to jacobziemer.com to learn more.